Hey there, comic friends. I'm Travis, and it's the Comic Book Roundtable. Or it's just me being the Comic Roundtable. Anyway, I'm here. We're going to talk some books. Hopefully, if anyone's watching, they can hear me, or you hear me after the fact. You know, it used to be that the YouTube Hangout down here in this bottom corner, it would tell me when people were watching, so I at least had an idea. So I don't know if there's some secret place that's hidden at now. If you know and I don't know, let me know. Anyway, we're going to talk some books from last week. 12 books, I think, for me as a whole. Some of them I'm probably not going to talk a whole lot about because I either skimmed read them or I just have no intention to read them because I've just lost interest. And they're just part of that cycle of stuff that I am currently buying because I'm in the middle of orders and whatnot. So anyway, we're going to talk Marvel first. I only got one Marvel book. This week it is The Immortal Hulk, issue number 16. So this book probably has more impact if you're a longtime Hulk reader, knowing the history of Hulk and some of these characters. I believe this is Ricky, who I am led to believe was around when the Bruce Banner first gets dosed with the gamma radiation. Like he's partially the reason why Banner gets dosed with the radiation. So there's some stuff going on with him. His body's been stolen, looks like by one of the government chunks. There's still the government assassin guy who's trying to kill the Hulk, even though he's been told to stand down. We get back into stuff with the reporter also. She's now been tasked with chasing down the Hulk more because the paper that she works for there in Arizona, because they broke the original story of the Hulk being back, they've become this huge thing, and now they're going to go national. So now they're forcing her to go with the story that maybe she isn't interested in. So I'm curious to see about that little aspect of the book, where that goes to. We continue to flirt with the edges of horror, with the Hulk being kind of a monster, but an intelligent, kind of creepy Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of a book. Continue to really like Joe Bennett's artwork on the book is stellar. Nothing that I remember being remarkable about this issue, but just a super solid run of comics just in general. I definitely, this far in, I recommend the trade because I think the singles now are selling for like stupid price on in the secondary market. It seems to me like I hear, the books are going for $150 and up, kind of a deal. And it's great. I mean, if you're a comic book collector, I guess, and it's really what you want, then clearly your money is yours to spend how you want to. Just the sheer reading experience. I mean, buy the second print or whatever, or buy the trade, or I guess if you're one of those weird people, get it digitally. Because clearly the price doesn't change digitally, right? It stays the same all the time. Anyway, great stuff. Still really, really enjoying The Immortal Hulk. And that is it for my Marvel books. Marvel news, I can't really think of anything that's like really like that I can remember having come up somewhere and whatnot. So I'm going to roll right on to some DC Comics. Like I said, tonight will probably be a quick night with just me talking. 2 books that I basically either skimmed read or read bits and pieces of. The Katana story at the beginning of this, I have not enjoyed pretty much through virtually all of the 6 issues. The Suicide Squad Black, the Magic Group in the back, more enjoyable story because I like the characters and whatnot. Still nothing to get too excited about. Glad it's done. Don't know if there's going to be any more of that and whatnot. The Katana story, it said the end. The other story, it had an end with a question mark on it. So I don't know if they're floating the idea of bringing more of those characters. Cool. Somebody else needs to write it besides the person who wrote it. But anyway, and Super Sons, I am just not feeling this book anymore. So I kind of skimmed through it. There is a cybernetic Jonah Hex. No idea because I decided not to read it. Issue 9 of 12. I'm probably getting the rest of the issues just to figure the series out. At some point, I'll sit down and read them. It's probably not going to be now. I can just find other things to read. I've got trades. I've got prose books. I've got any number of other things I could read besides this because it is just not fun. This doesn't have the charm that the ongoing series had, which bums me out. So the only other DC book I picked up this week, only 3 DC books this week. Female Furies issue number 3 continues to deal with misogyny and stuff like that in the workplace. Is Super Sons the original writer? Comic to comic? Yes, it is. It's Tomasi. It's the same writer, different artist. But the art isn't bad as far as that goes. It just doesn't have. It's simplistic and just doesn't have the charm. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he's just phoning it in now because he's got other things to do. But it seems weird. You know, like I said, Tomasi, and what else is Tomasi writing right now that I think we both agree is wasn't that great? Was that arc before Detective Comics 1000? So I don't know what's happened. I used to swear by Tomasi, and now I check out what he's doing, but I don't swear by him anymore. Between those 2 comics. Anyway, Female Furies, misogyny in the workplace, deals some with the actual, apocalypse and that sort of stuff. It's kind of loosely retelling some of that. We do get the first meeting between Scott Free and Barda. Yeah, I don't know. I really like the writer. Castellucci is her last name, Cecile. She wrote Shade the Changing Woman, Shade the Changing Girl, from this last oh heck, what's the Wade imprint called? I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, this last incarnation of the book, Young Animals. There we go. So I like a lot of her work. This just feels very on the nose. And I don't know if, so clearly maybe I'm not the demographic. And maybe this is a book with representation, and that makes it a great book for those purposes and whatnot. For me, though, there's no subtlety. There's no subtlety in the book. And I like the themes. I would just like the themes to have a little more sophistication than what they seem to here. And maybe that shouldn't be the case. But for me as a reader, I would like it to have that. I'm not disliking it, but I'm not super excited about the book either. Something I am super excited about is the writer of this is going to be writing Batgirl here pretty soon. I've been enjoying Batgirl, but I'm curious to see what she might do with Batgirl too. At any rate, this is halfway through. I guess your mileage varies like any comic book. This is also something that I would not necessarily direct anybody to unless they told me that they were looking for a book that kind of hit this kind of themes. They were looking for something that addressed, misogyny and violence in the workplace and all of that. And the whole kind of, one person being victimized and sexually abused by somebody and everybody else, their peers not believing it, and a lot of that kind of aspect in it. I'm really curious to see what happens next, though, because the person that was being abused is kind of done now. And, does Barda pick up the mantle now? Does this suddenly become more of a Barda story? Is it still mostly a Granny Goodness story? No. Yeah, it's interesting seeing the Granny Goodness being the old school woman, the pre Me Too movement character, female character in the book, and about how she basically tells them you take the lumps and you go on, kind of a thing, that we don't complain, we soldier on, kind of a deal, and they're trying to, some of them are trying to establish that's not how it should operate. So interesting stuff. DC news, the Batgirl thing, Young Animals has been announced that it's coming back. New Doom Patrol. It's got a subtitle now. I can't remember what the subtitle is. Gerard Way is still writing it. He has a co-writer now, different artist on the book. It's Doom Patrol, so I'm going to get it. I'm hopeful. You look at the cast of characters. The cast of characters is largely not the original Doom Patrol cast. Really, it's this kind of these new characters are created, which is cool. I mean, that's, you know, tell a different kind of story and whatnot, but that makes it feel less like quote unquote my Doom Patrol. So we'll see. We'll see how that is. There's also another Green Lantern book coming out of the Young Animals, which is written by Mikey Way. That's Gerard's brother. I only know that because my daughter is a huge My Chemical Romance fan. And I was like, oh, there's this person with the same last name. That's kind of weird. And she's like, oh, that's who this is. I'm like, okay, cool. And I guess he's written some other comics too. So it's like he's, you know, totally new to the comic business. And I'm thinking there is one other Young Animal book, and I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head. Yes, we got further news on the Jimmy Olsen and the Lois Lane book. We kind of knew there was one coming, but now we know it is a 12-issue maxi series. I'm super stoked for both books. That Jimmy Olsen book, I'm exceedingly excited about. I'm just curious to see where Matt Fraction and Steve Lieberman take that book. Both guys are really smart creators. I think Lieberman doesn't get enough credit on his art for the physical gags that he can put into a comic book. Just go check out Superior Foes of Spider-Man, and you can see a lot of them that are they're just really great stuff. So I'm just all kinds of ecstatic for what that book is going to actually be like. And then, of course, the Lois Lane book is going to be, you know, with Greg Rucka writing, it's going to be kind of the hard-hitting journalist. The cover image that we've seen, or at least the solicit image that we've seen for it right now, you know, it's kind of like Lois Lane holding up a newspaper. The Superman logo is kind of being burnt through it, and you can see her. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the actual story is going to be about. I mean, I don't need to know. I'm not going to read the solicits. I'm in for that. Do I think they're mainstreaming Young Animals? Mainstreaming, kind of. It feels less unique. I mean, they're telling a Green Lantern story. I mean, it's going to be its own kind of a Green Lantern story, but aren't we already kind of doing that? Aren't they already telling kind of a different Green Lantern story with Grant Morrison? So to me, that seems like a weird one. But I mean, but the imprint, the Young Animal pop-up imprint, has always been kind of, let's take the kind of the odd side character, you know, the Cave Carsons, the Doom Patrol, that sort of thing, and you do something with them. So I don't know that it's a long way, you know, I mean, these books sound different. I don't know that it's a long ways away from what their kind of original mission statement of what they were going to be is. I mean, I guess we'll see. I'll probably get it because I'm assuming that through Discount Comic Book Service, where I buy my books, more than likely the Young Animal stuff will all come at a 50% discount. So it's fairly cheap for me to try and read whatever. Everybody knows I'm not a Green Lantern fan as a whole, or at least not a Hal Jordan fan. You got to do something to make that interesting for me to want to read Green Lantern, but I will check it out. Like I said, there's a third book, and I cannot remember what the third book is right off the top of my head. Should have written that down before I started this out, but oh well. But yeah, I'm excited for all that. We're getting to see more artwork, like some image from Alex Maleev of the Leviathan stuff, which is a Bendis book, which I will be picking up, that kind of has to do with more detective type stuff. The one image that I have seen, it had Batman, of course. It had who else did it have? I think it's Lois Lane, Kate Spencer, Manhunter, Green Arrow, and Plastic Man. So I don't know exactly what the whole, you know, gathering the greatest detectives together kind of thing, what it's going to necessarily all be about. I believe it spins out of the Superman stuff. I'm excited by that just because that's an interesting group of people. I think I just saw another image that had Mr. Terrific in it too. But so I'm really curious. I mean, they just gathering up all the detective type heroes from the DC universe. And then I start thinking, so how many Collapser? That's the third book. That one sounds interesting because of the young animal stuff. That one sounds interesting just because listening to the creators talk about it, it's like originally they had the idea and they had this hero and they started talking about it and they ended up liking the villain. The villain they thought ended up being the bad guy, ended up being the more interesting character. So it's told around the bad guy. So yeah. But anyway, I was thinking about it. How many superheroes like aren't detectives? How many of them are just straight, punch him in the nose and save the bank robber as it's happening? It seems like a lot of them actually have to figure stuff out. There's a mystery. It's more than just simply, being in the right place at the right time to punch the bank robber out. So I don't know. You could fit a lot of characters into that if it came down to that. Anyway, can't think of any other news. So I'm just going to jump right into my independent books, which is largely as per usual anymore, what my poll was for that week. Let's see. Let's talk Ahoy Comics Bronze Age Boogie. So this is a issue number 1. It is an anthology book. It is a sci-fi fantasy anthology kind of book. So it's got multiple stories in it. Some of them are actual prose with some illustrations along with it. And then, of course, some of it's comics. The first story that's in this is by Alberto Ponticelli, does the artwork in it. It's about a girl and her father. They are part of a warrior clan and they're attacking these wizards. Lots of standard stuff. The wizards are resurrecting the undead and they're fighting that and they're trying to figure out what to do, kind of a thing. And she is visited by a chimpanzee who can talk. She's pretty hip. She talks basically kind of like a modern person as opposed to somebody from back in the medieval ages. We find out that there are a legion of monkeys, of apes who have been scattered across the timeline. They were time travelers, part of some advanced space program on Earth, but their time machines are kind of broken down, so they're scattered across the timelines, and they're working to fight some greater things. I mean, the fantasy people, the medieval people are fighting Martians in it and some other crazy stuff, which is pretty amusing. There's some pretty, there's some somewhat entertaining, like I said, the Ponticelli artwork fighting them. These are the Martians that they're fighting, which is pretty cool. It was a lot of fun. Some good stuff there. But like I said, there's some prose in it. There's another story in here called Ursula Major or something like that. That's a space program, clearly early space program. They're sending a bear up as opposed to the dogs or the apes or that sort of thing. And these two people, she's in charge of the space program. Here's the military guy who was going to fly it. He's mad because he's not going up. They're sending the bear up instead. Their ex-husband and wife, they send the bear up. She continues to have comments on the fact that the bear is great and her ex-husband is kind of scummy. The rocket goes awry, and it actually crash lands back down in the original place. And when the bear comes out, the bear can talk. So we'll see what that story ends up to continue to be like. And then there's just these fun prose that are interesting things. This animal control incident reports on Red Cedar Lane, and it's all these people calling in about these two squirrels that are hanging out and some horrible stuff there. And then there's one on how to beat writer's block, which is kind of fun too. So yeah, I enjoy these Ahoy comics, these kind of quasi anthology, some little pieces of prose, lots of comics, sort of thing. So I'll hang out this, and this first story is kind of fun. So I'll continue along with it. I think as a whole, Ahoy Comics is a decent company, at least as far as as far as the products they're putting out there, good quality. They have interesting people doing the work. So I've been liking the stuff. Now, the only Ahoy Comics really I've been getting so far has been their anthology stuff. There are some books coming up though by them that I'm going to get that'll just be regular series, kind of a deal too. So, the Redlands, this is issue number what? I want to say 12. So this is the halfway point, they say. This is the end of the second arc and the halfway point in the run. So 24 issues is what it's going to be. This issue is really, really cool. It kind of, it goes back and reorients us with the witch's father. So most of the issues told through kind of his eyes, him moving through time, adopting these daughters, giving them what they want. But clearly it's kind of like making a deal with the devil, so you don't get exactly what you want. And he is not happy as a father because he's the type of father that believes that once he's gifted something to you, that you should be ultimately loyal and pay him back eternally for what he's done. So not much of a father at all, really, kind of thing. But a really interesting story. I mean, I'm really curious to see how where these characters are. This very dramatic kind of jailbreak prison type thing is going to be going on in the book soon. And I don't know how that's all going to play out, but it looks like the daughters are going to attempt to overthrow him, but he's clearly aware of that. So how that all plays out, I don't know, because he is like an ancient deity of death and sometimes plays the role of the devil. A bit of a monster. I mean, he makes people like cut their own noses off so he can eat them. Just really bizarre stuff like that. So, don't know. It'll be curious to see how it plays out. But I have been enjoying this. I do think that Jodi Bellaire, who we mostly know for coloring, does have some writing chops. She has some interesting story to tell. This is an interesting story to tell. I don't know that I would just see her, getting on any book and writing, but I know she is doing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Has moved companies, right? And like I guess like for Boom now, and she's writing that. So I guess we'll hear how that's going to be. I'm not a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan per se, so I'm not getting that. But I'll be curious to see other people what they have to say about it. But this is good, and I love this just dark, painted art from Vanessa Del Rey. So, Black Hammer 45. Well, this issue ties into the rest of the Black Hammer stuff, but I'm not really feeling it. I just am not. For me, there's no real hook or excitement about it. This feels. Matt Kindt clearly has his own style of artwork, but this feels even rushed for him. So I don't know. I'm just as far as the Black Hammer stuff goes, I'm just not that excited about it. The end of this issue at least ties into some of the regular Black Hammer stuff. So we have that, but I just don't know that I'm that interested. I mean, I'm curious about the fact we kind of keep getting told this old story why these old geezers are riding along in a car. And I like that aspect of the story a little bit, but there's not enough of that versus the whole, glory, war story thing. And I'm not that excited about it. So I don't have a whole lot to say. Looking at the comments, Coming to Comics saying the Redlands is Stephen King with a good editor. Yeah, it's a great way of, definitely. Good way of describing it, because it is that. I mean, I'm really enjoying it quite a bit. Let's see what I want to. The Dreaming, issue number 8. This is another issue that is done by a different artist. It's done by Abigail Larson. The art works really well for this. So the first issue, I kind of wasn't really thinking about it. I just kind of read it. Okay, this is kind of a one-off. Second issue is the second part of the story called Love Story. Paid a little more close attention. It has characters and aspects from the original Sandman series. One of the characters in here is the babysitter of Daniel, kind of a thing. And it didn't occur to me until this issue when they basically tell me that that's the case, because it's been long enough since I've read the Sandman books to have not picked up on that. I really liked the book. It bummed me out big time. Might be just because of my own personal headspace while I'm reading it. But it's kind of, exploring love and having love kind of blown up in your face and that sort of thing. Not that I'm having any issues around that in particular. But it's a good story. It's a sad story. At least I see it as a sad in an aspect. I mean, Dreaming gets to kind of experience love, which is cool. That's a good thing. The person he experiences it with is basically shattered at the end of it. I'm curious to see if she ends up being a character that's in the Dreaming, and who she is in the Dreaming, if she actually exists in the Dreaming, because she's a shell, she's quote unquote brain dead. But we'll see. But I know next issue we going back to the land of the dreams. I'm excited for that, to get back into that with this new Queen of Dreams that is sitting on the throne currently. I'm really interested to see how that plays out and whatnot. Still really like the Dreaming. It's still really, I mean, Simon Spurrier does an excellent job. To me, this book really does feel like it is a natural progression of continuing to tell stories that were Sandman stories. He's not directly in it. It's the cast around Sandman largely, around Morpheus, around Dream, but still really solid stuff. It all makes sense. It all makes sense for why it's there. So I really like it for that. Here is the end of Mirror. This book was about 60 pages, I believe. I didn't actually count it, but it feels thick. It felt like it was like 3 comics worth of story. With $6, $5.99. So that's probably would be my good guess as to what that was. This finishes the story out, the Mirror. Lots of people are like, what? That book is still around. I can still continues to be gorgeous. This interesting watercolor. It was a challenging book to read monthly because of how far it was spread apart. And it was very, meta is not the right word because I get tired of using that word and I abuse it. But it's very ethereal in that what's going on in it. There's living planets, there's deities, there's different races of creatures, all kind of fighting for the same space. There's a little bit of magic involved in it. It bounces around between different aspects with the different arcs of this book. This is issue 10. And then it all kind of ties together. In this issue, it really spends a lot of time stitching together all the bits and pieces to tell you how it all supposedly makes sense, which it does to me, but I would be hard pressed to explain it to anybody else to tell the story. This is something that if you could get the works all together in one place and read it straight through, I think it would be gorgeous. I think it would be a brilliant, interesting fantasy of creation and a struggle to survive and all of that kind of stuff. It's just really, it's just really strange that large aspects of it, you finish the book and then you get this like quasi back matter that's kind of like hard facts about what's going on in the book or who people are. And it's this information, these couple pages in the back that tend to lend itself to after what you've read, you go, oh, now I can put all those pieces together. And that was the large struggle through like probably the first 6 issues of this thing is you'd read it and go, I'm just not sure what's going on. It, like I said, it looks interesting. Yeah, there's these great, wonderful, fantastical characters. And like I said, different thoughts on creation and like I said, deities and living worlds and all that kind of stuff. And then you get to the back and you read kind of like the hard facts of the back. You're like, oh, like there's timelines and stuff. And you can start putting all the pieces together kind of a deal. It almost felt like that should have been at the front. So then you knew going in, okay, this is what this person represents. But maybe that kind of takes away some aspect of it. But this is a book that at some point I will revisit and read it straight through. And I think I'll enjoy it more. A book that I am kind of bummed about because I was all excited for people to be able to jump on a David Lapham book because I know some people are afraid to just jump into Stray Bullets because like, where do I start? Because it's like, 2,000 pages in kind of a story. So I was like, oh man, you jump on this, you're going to get the experience. Only a small little piece. Stray Bullets is a brilliant book with just these characters that are just over the top and hilarious, tragic, and smart all at the same time. This is, and he likes the Lamphams like to tell stories not in chronological order, which is kind of what this is, I believe. It's just this one's a lot more confusing to try and get to that. There's these aspects going on. I'm not exactly sure who everybody is. I thought we were kind of condensed down to like 3 characters. Now it feels like there are potentially 2 killers running around in this. So I'm not. We're on issue 4. Don't know how many issues this thing's going to be. I don't feel lost. I just feel like I haven't been given the pieces I need to actually put it together. You know, so I'm just kind of bummed. I guess part of the problem is one of the characters in it, you know, I think the guy that you would call the lodger, he is like a master of disguise. So he'll make himself look like a different person and then operate as a different person. So sometimes when I'm reading the book, I'm not exactly 100% sure who it is that's being represented there. So I'm not always 100% sure what the time frame is of the book. So yeah. I still say go pick up Stray Bullets if you want to see this stuff masterfully done. Do that. I don't have a lot else to say about that book. 2 other books. Paper Girls continues to be a brilliant book. Issue number 27. We're rolling down to the end. What is it, like 2 or 3 issues after this? I believe. The girls are all separated now, trying to kind of fight their way back. Trying to look to see where it tells me. I can't see it. Oh, that was a place that told me how many issues were left, but I don't remember where it said where I read that at. Anyway, just continues to be excellent stuff. Great Cliff Chang artwork in it. Wonderful poignant lines get dropped by these girls throughout the book. You know, part of me wishes it was longer, but it's also cool to get a full, complete story. I just dig it. It's just like I said, it's just really fun. It has some just really great lines in it and stuff, and I'm just kind of excited every time the book comes out. Continues to not be what I expected it to be when we first started to read the book. So, like I said, there's only a few more issues left of this. On a news aspect, today it was announced or whatever that their Saga, another Brian K. Vaughan book, it's 54 issues in. They have now officially said that is the halfway mark. They're at the halfway mark of the book. It's going to be 108 issues, supposedly. Those 54 issues are being put out in one giant compendium, oversized, massive thing. It's coming out in October, I believe. And it's going to be even longer than that before, probably before the book starts up again. So we're going to be more than a year's worth of a intermission before we get more Saga. I'm still somewhat doubtful that we'll really see Saga. And I have concerns that if Saga suddenly comes back, that it will not be the same book when it comes back. I just get nervous if things take this level of break and people aren't still working on it. You know, they're taking a break too, that possibly you're going to lose some of the magic. So, I mean, I say that, but, oh boy, I'm having problems with titles in books. The Greg Rucka and Lark book, that has Forever in it. Is that what it's called? Lazarus took a massive break, and it still feels to me like, other than time has moved forward, which is typical for a Saga book, time has moved forward, it feels like the same book. It doesn't feel like it missed a beat at all. So there is that. So I guess I don't know. I worry about the Saga that we're not going to get the rest of it, and I love the book. And finally, my last book to talk about this week is Die, issue number 5. I have been seriously digging this book, largely because I come from a world where I role played a lot. It was the thing I did, because the beauty was, during my just getting out of high school years, and well, in high school too, but actually clear from like 6th grade. But getting out of high school, couldn't afford television, couldn't afford a lot of stuff. I could always afford to role play. That was something I could always do. So me and my friends, that was the thing we did. We had massive multiple campaigns running all the time. I probably role played, 4 out of the 7 days of the week for many, many years on end. So this just kind of hit all kinds of notes. And I absolutely really, really love the book. And I was really liking the idea of, oh my God, what it'd be like to have to go back and live through the mess of choices that you made while you were in, this make-believe world. So at the end of this issue, we kind of get the groundwork laid down for what the book is truly going to totally be about. We kind of thought we knew what it was going to be about. Now we really know. Now we know what the menace is. We know what the fearless, the endless, they're called the endless, right? We know what the endless are in the book. Pretty sure they're endless, not fearless. Endless. Pretty sure it's endless. We find out what they are. Some hard choices get made in this issue. And now what the hell are we going to do? So for me personally, in my head, it's changed what the comic is about dramatically for me. So now it's like, okay, we're going to get these interesting stories, like the one that was kind of the play on Tolkien and World War I and that sort of stuff, which I really liked and whatnot. And we're going to get these aspects of, oh my God, what's it like to walk through a make-believe world that you kind of just did your whatever you wanted to do in, and now you potentially could be paying the consequences for that. But it's largely this other story, and I'm still enjoying it, but I'm not excited about it in the same way. Now, for me, it's a book I'm going to ponder heavily as I'm reading it, as opposed to the other things that I was thinking about, the kind of excitement of what would that be like. Now it's got this, we've gone back to having this kind of human element in it, a different kind of human element of how do you get along with other people, and how do you agree on something or not agree on something? This whole other aspect that I'm curious to see how that plays, how that plays now in it. That's going to be really curious. And by the time I get to the next issue, I may be out of that space, but for me, this issue pulled me out of the role-playing part of it more so than this whole other dynamic that has now been thrown in there, that feels really sinister of the writer. I mean, right? Or the DM of this book. It feels very, very sinister. This whole kind of, we all have an agreement to get out. And like I said, in this issue, the choices that were made. And now there's this whole other thing going on, that this anarchy at the end of it that was not a planned thing. And it'll be really curious to see how does this work? Because clearly there's one character who the book seems to be largely told through, Ash, being a dictator, being somebody who can force people to do as they bid. How do you operate around that person? Because you really can't trust them, because they can just use that power on you whenever they want to, right? So it's going to be really interesting. Unfortunately, it's going to be like August before we get another issue, because they're taking a massive break. You guys that are reading this, so that two people that are in the comments that are reading this, are you going to get the role-playing game? When that comes out, are you going to get that? I'm going to check it out. I don't know. I'm curious about it. I haven't role-played for a few years. I mean, I've role-played some because I've introduced my kids to role-playing, because I think everybody should role-play at some point in their life. But yeah, I mean, I love the book, but like I said, for me, it's kind of changed. It's a different thing than it was an issue or two ago. Watch the comments. Mike is saying that he's not getting the role playing game because he doesn't have time for that. I hear you. I'm the same way. I'll get it. I didn't say I was going to play. I'll get it just because I'm curious to see whatever. There was a time when I bought, whether I could play them or not, I bought all the role playing games to see what what was there and what was different or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a great comic. I'm really curious to see what all is explored with it. I think it's going to be a really smart book. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what they as creators have to say in it. I did not pick up the Six Gun game. I did not at all. Largely because we would have had time to play it, right? And that's what all that stuff is for me. There'd be no way in reality I would have time to play it. But I come from a world, the last of my role playing, I basically used a universal gaming system so I could take any reality, any environment that I wanted to play in, and we could figure out a way to make the rules work for pretty much anything. So I could take any comic and convert it into a role playing game without it having to have its own specifics generally, unless there was some strange element that was different than what a typical game mechanic would be able to handle. So otherwise, just world setting. Anyway, that's it. That's it for my books. I don't really have any other indie type news type thing. So I'm going to cut this short. Maybe more people will watch it because it's short. Hopefully here in the future, I will get some people back. Some of you people who are in the comments, come on, talk some comics with me. Anyway, have a great one, everybody. And thank you for tuning in. And I will check you all hopefully next week. I've got some weeks coming up that I don't know that I'll do a comic book roundtable. Work is making me leave home again for a week or two on end. So we'll see how that plays out. But anyway, that's the future, and we'll worry about that later. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching.